Some interesting comments were made in a recent article regarding Florida State and what they might do if and when they are able to get out of the ACC. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to share a portion of the article with you and then give you my thoughts on what this can mean for the future of college football. And we're going to do it right after this word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Belly yourself up to the bar and let me pour you out this shot of top-shelf college football content. On tap today at Couz's Corner, we're once again talking about conference realignment. In my last video, which was regarding West Virginia and TCU possibly being targeted by the ACC at some point in the future, I will leave a link to that video. I'll pin it at the top of the comment section so that you can watch that one after this one's over if you choose. Also, I told you in that video there was more to come because there was some very interesting tidbits of information in the article that I'm referencing. It was an article in the News and Observer, and I think that's a newspaper in the state of North Carolina. It was, just to give you the background, for those of you who may not have seen my previous video, to give you the background, the article was about NC State and their decision to change their mind regarding expansion and adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU. Originally, NC State wasn't on board with the move, and the article goes through the timeline of early August when talks first started, all the way to September 1 when they officially voted to add those three teams into the ACC, and kind of how the process played out regarding NC State. Well, in that article, there were some very interesting comments made by a gentleman named Ben Sutton. Ben Sutton, as I mentioned in a previous video, was former owner of ISP, who then sold to IMG. Most of you probably heard of IMG College, IMG Sports, Learfield IMG. They have a lot of different divisions, but most of it revolves around sports in some way, shape, or form. I think they now own the UFC, the WWE, several other entities. But they're major players in the college football space. And this Ben Sutton is an alum of Wake Forest and a major donor of Wake Forest. He's also close friends with a lot of conference commissioners, ADs, school presidents, other boosters from around the country. He moves around in those circles. He lives in those circles, right? That's who he communicates with. That's his lifestyle. But he was very influential in convincing NC State, apparently, to change their opinion and end up voting to add those schools into the conference because he wanted to save. He felt like it was needed to save the ACC. Mr. Sutton did. Well, in Mr. Sutton's text communications back and forth with the chairman of the board for North Carolina State, Mr. Ed Weisiger, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Hope I didn't butcher it. In his text communications back and forth, some very interesting comments were made. I'm going to read a portion of this article for you, and I'll even share it on the screen. The crux of his long message quickly became clear enough. The ACC could no longer wait. And here's some quotes from Mr. Sutton. We've all been watching this movie for 25 years as the ACC consistently waited for others to make the first move. And by the time the league's leaders decided to respond, they were totally reactionary and playing for third and fourth place in a 5-horse race, obviously referring to the Power 5 conferences there. He soon summarized his argument in 3 sentences. Now, I'm not going to read all 3 sentences. Part of that was part of my last video. In this one, I'm focusing on the Florida State comment. Here we go. The ACC has to expand, and now. It is entirely about setting yourself up for the next move, one of the definitions of strategy. To Sutton, the ACC's choices were clear. It could either ultimately get eaten up, as he wrote, or you can play the game. And the game was to be the number 3 conference in terms of revenue output and one of only 3 bona fide financially stable national conferences. Allowing expansion, Sutton argued, would be like buying insurance for the future members of the ACC. The ACC contract with ESPN requires 14 full members in the league. If Carolina and If Carolina and Virginia leave by taking Cal and Stanford, you take no haircut. And here's the part I want to focus on in this video. Mr. Sutton says, to close out this part of the article, it says, if FSU goes independent, and they are seriously considering it, SMU could fill the gap, end quote. That was the bombshell, folks. FSU considering going independent. That's big. Could FSU actually make it as an independent program right now? Notre Dame's been able to do it for years. Could Florida State do the same thing? Do they pull the same weight as Notre Dame? Well, I reached out to a couple of industry folks. Jim Williams, who's a friend of the show. I asked Jim Williams his opinion on this. And here's what Jim had to say. Was that he thinks FSU could pull it off. And the way he thinks they could do that is they can negotiate an exit from the ACC. And they would also still have to pay some money to pay a buyout. But maybe they could get out of the grant of rights, or at least get out of being tied to the conference in football by doing two things. One, staying tied to the ACC and being a member of the ACC in all other sports, including basketball, but also having a scheduling agreement in football where they play X number of teams every season from the ACC, similar to what Notre Dame does. Let's say they decide to play 5 ACC teams every year in football, and then their 7 other games would be against opponents of their choosing, whoever they're able to schedule. Now, the challenge to that would be the scheduling piece, in my opinion, if they could even make it work financially. I also reached out to Bob Thompson, who used to be an executive with Fox Sports, and keep in mind, folks, this is all opinions here. This is nobody reporting anything. This is just Jim's opinion and then Bob's opinion. But Bob thinks it would be tough because he doesn't know that financially a network would be willing to take on that risk. Because what happens if Florida State is no longer good? Remember, Florida State's had some rough years since they won that national title in 2013, 2014, whenever it was. They've had some down years. They are now finally getting back up. They're now a top 5 team again. But it took them several years to get there, a decade almost, to get back to that mark. How valuable were they when they weren't winning? I don't have the numbers to answer that question. But Bob's point was, would a network want to take a risk on a team, assuming they'd be good all the time? Because not many teams are good all the time. Notre Dame has such a large following. I mean, they have the largest, if not, well, I think they have the second largest fan base in America outside of Ohio State, is based on information I've read. Most schools don't have that. Notre Dame is unique in that regard. They're very, very popular with the Catholic religion. Florida State's not tied to a religion. Yes, they have a large fan base. They have a passionate fan base. But is it big enough to carry them as an independent? But another thing that Jim Williams pointed out in my conversation with him is, what if, say, North Carolina and Clemson decide to do the same thing? What if they also break away and become independents with that scheduling agreement with the ACC? Well, then I got to thinking, okay, they could all play ACC teams, but then they could also play each other, right? Think about that move. You could have North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State on, you'd have each other on your schedule every year. And, oh, by the way, what if other teams from other conferences decide they want to do the same thing? What if they decide they want to break away and separate football and go independent in football and keep their other sports tied to a conference? What if multiple teams from various conferences decide to do the same? Then what happens? Then it becomes easier to schedule opponents outside of your conference, outside of the scheduling agreement with your conference. I want you to let me know in the comments section, first of all, do you think Florida State can make it as an independent, even if they only want to do it temporarily? Maybe they only do it for a few years until all these TV deals start coming up for negotiation again, and then they try to get into the Big Ten or the SEC. Maybe that's the play here. Maybe it's only a temporary stopgap till they can get in these other conferences. And we know, we've heard talks that they're in negotiations with private equity groups to try to fund their way out, buy their way out of the ACC. Guys, if you want to support what I'm doing here on the channel, there are several ways you can do that, and I really ask for that support. Number one, you can buy merch from my merch store. You can get a shirt like the one I'm wearing now. Kind of a remake of the Jack Daniels label. with a West Virginia spin. You can do that, or I now have merch with my new logo. If you buy merch from my merch store between now and October the 22nd, you get free standard shipping on anything you buy. Also, Spreadshop, who I run my store through, is offering a very special deal for 3 days only, October 22nd through the 24th. You get an additional 25% off any item in my merch store, October 22nd through 24th. Take advantage of that offer. If you've been thinking about buying something from my merch store, now that would be the time to do it. Where you get free shipping, or the 22nd through the 24th, where you get 25% off. Also, you can support my channel in other ways. There are several links in the description box you can click for Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, the Fanatics link to do your Fanatics shopping. All that helps out the channel. You can also become a channel member. There's a link for that as well. Donate $2.99 or $4.99 a month and take advantage of the perks. You see some of my channel members scrolling along the screen now. This is the club level members, and here are my pub level, which is the $2.99 level membership. Last but not least, you can support me absolutely 100% free by hitting the like button on this video, hitting the dislike button on this video, dropping the comment below, or subscribing to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to Couz's Corner yet, what are you waiting for, folks? I'm serving you up top shelf college football content about West Virginia, conference realignment, and the Big 12. I try to get you at least 4 to 5 videos a week. So what are you waiting for? If you like that kind of content, subscribe. Don't forget the notification bell to be notified of future videos and future live streams. With all that being said, guys, I appreciate your support in the past, the present, and the future. And until the next video, have yourself a top shelf day, and Q Country Roads.